Welcome to another Tuesday, another Tradesmen Talk. Your favorite podcasters, Stephen and Wilson.
We hope we're your favorite. We're going to be your favorite. More value coming.
It's possible, but another week, man. I hope your week's gone well. I'm in the middle of the desert right now, making my voyage back to Florida.
How did you find the national parks I was telling you about? How'd you like Sequoia?
So I went to Yosemite and Sequoia over a couple days, and it was awesome. I need to get back to civilization though, because I'm on the edge of just saying I'm gonna live out in nature for the rest of my life. I do a lot better with animals.
Just pitch a tent under General Sherman, like this is my house now.
Dude, yeah, I saw General Sherman, the supposedly the biggest tree in the world in terms of volume mass.
Yeah.
And so that was cool. I mean, I love trees. I love being outside. I love the ocean, mountains and fields, and California gives all of that to you.
Right.
And so it's been an amazing trip. I could easily stay out longer, but I already paid for sailing lessons in Florida. Reserved that a while ago. So I'm going to go back and go to Florida and do that with my brother and learn how to sail, who knows, I'm doing a van trip now. Maybe the next one will be a sailing trip. I'm probably not. I actually get motion sickness pretty easily. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, I mean, the important thing, and I think that the real value there, regardless of what it is that you're doing, it's that constant habit of learning new things, right? It's whether it's business related, whether it's personal related. I think forming the habit of consistently learning new things and being comfortable with investing in yourself to learn those new things, even if it's not something that is related to your business. Like I invested several $1,000s one time to train with this personal trainer, primarily because actually check him out on Instagram. His name's Primal Swolger. The dude is a freak, right? And I mean this
Primal Swolger?
Primal Swolger. Yes.
Okay.
He's got like, I met him because I was training at this gym and ended up training with him. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do one-on-one training with this guy just so I can see like what I would train like if I was training with somebody that trains like this. And that was the whole point. And I never would have trained that hard on my own. And I learned so many different techniques and systems. But yeah, like this is kind of guy that can lay flat on his face with 100-pound like kettlebells and then drag himself up into a handstand and then clean these 100 bells. And I couldn't even clean the bells, let alone do a handstand from prone, like, just crazy level of athleticism. You spend lots of money to be able to spend time with people like that. So you can take some of that with you, have a buddy.
It's good to learn new things, man. Like you said, you took those lessons and apply them to your own personal workouts. And like you mentioned, just getting in the habit of learning and keeping that curious mind, I think is a trait that a lot of successful people have. And therefore I embrace it. And so, I think lessons are the greatest gifts, not only to ourselves, but that's what I do for particularly Christmas every year with my brother. I always get him some sort of lesson. I've done, I signed him up for flying lessons.
Nice.
I did golfing lessons. What else do we do? We're doing sailing lessons this year. I think I've done a few. I try to do like lessons around something that's cool, or I think that's cool. And yeah, they make good gifts. And so the sailing was in Florida. And so I was always been kind of curious about that. I think it's got a cool kind of heritage or culture around sailing. And so just to understand the mechanisms or how to operate a boat like that, I feel like would be cool to understand. And, next time I go to Italy, I could rent a boat and fly it or fly it. Yeah. I'm a super experienced sailor.
Yeah. I don't think you know how sailing.
I'm going to go fly the boat around the coast.
Yeah. Just got to talk to me after your lesson, but it's good that you're learning. It's
some terms I'm going to be learning.
Yeah. Well, it's that practice. And one of the things about constantly learning new things is if we're not constantly learning new things, we start to create an imaginary gap between where we're at and where someone else is. Like, we start ascribing things to talent, or we start ascribing things to like, oh, they're just naturally great at, like, oh yeah, he's just naturally a great sailor. Like nobody's naturally a great sailor. That's a stupid concept, right? They had to spend time on the boat and they had to figure it out. Just like there aren't, right. I spent enough time around teenage drivers to know that I don't think there's that many naturally good drivers. I think some kids played a lot more with car toys than others. Some
I
kids.
think there's naturally bad drivers.
Oh, I'll give you that. Yeah, there's naturally bad drivers. But most of my naturally good driver friends grew up with ATVs. It's not that they're naturally good, it's that they've been on the thing since before they actually had an opportunity to drive a car. They have that familiarity. And so it's like when you're constantly pushing.
That's a hobby I want to pick up in my later years is drifting cars. I'm gonna
Well, remind me, next time I'm in South Carolina, we'll come down. One of my really good friends, my roommate from college, has a Z06 Corvette that he turned into drifting. And
nice. He's got a track over there.
They have a couple tracks that go around, but anytime you want, we can actually go out there and we can ride around his Corvette. He loves doing it, and we're always looking for excuses to hang out. So let me know. We'll make it happen.
Totally do that.
Cool.
You said South Carolina?
Yeah, I mean, we could probably make a trip anywhere, but he's got to tow the truck. He's got to tow the car, so he's out of Greenville.
Oh yeah, dude. Let's make that happen over the next couple of years. But
yeah.
I don't want to get too sidetracked. Kind of leaning on the topic of keeping curious mind, learning, and having the habit of wanting to learn new skills. That, of course, can be directly applicable to business and maintaining that mindset of knowing that there's areas to improve. There's always a solution to the challenge you might be dealing with. And for many of you listening, you might be in the position where you've gotten the business started. Maybe you're doing a little bit of everything in the business. Maybe you have a small team, but you're trying to grow. And you might be in the process of deciding, where do I go from here? What part of the business do I grow first? How do I grow that business? And then how do I know when to go to the next step? What is the next step? So there's a lot of natural questions that can pop up when you have made the decision to grow your business.
Yes.
And I would like to start off by commending you for getting to that position. It can be very hard for people to even take the leap of faith and bet on themselves with their own business. Yes. And so if you've gotten to the point where you've started the business, you're generating revenue, and now you're wanting to grow the business, we want to talk about how to think about that and how to approach from that perspective. And so with that, Wilson, what thoughts would you say, or do you have around the idea of thinking about growing the business, and how should one decide what part of the business to grow first?
Yeah. I like to always look at everything from kind of like a math perspective. My inner nerd gets real excited. It's like, it's always a matter of isolating variables to figure out what the limiting factor is.
Sure.
So, if you're trying to grow your business, right, your business is almost always stuck for a couple of reasons, right? Either you don't have enough clients to go further. Okay. You have enough clients, but you don't have any more capacity. And that one actually can break down into two categories, right? Either you don't have capacity for delivery, or you don't have capacity for administration for improved or continued delivery.
Okay.
And so 9 out of 10 times, I think for a lot of the contractors and things we work with, I think that the biggest thing that they get stuck is, if you've been doing this for years and years and years, you'll get to a point where you have a reputation. Where I hear most of the people being stuck is they've developed a reputation, they have business, but they can't take on more business because they can't do any more work themselves. And so
they're too busy. And
so the first place I usually want people to look at is hiring, right? Buying yourself some time, because most people look at like hiring as like an expense where I'm paying another person, but that's not what you're doing. You're not paying another person. You're literally buying time back for yourself.
Investing.
Yes, 100%, because your time can be multiplied and it can create way more by having that back, assuming you've got a plan for it. And so, I think, the first place that people should typically focus on is looking at hiring. And then from there, deciding, once you're going to hire, okay, if we've established that's what we need, where do we hire and in what order to create the highest return for ourselves? And that return can be classified in two ways. First is monetary. The second is in quality of life. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to note, because if you were just asked as a general term, I would almost always recommend hiring a laborer first, because I still want to control sales. And I don't think if you're just doing like, 1 or 2 jobs a week, that there's enough to keep an admin fully busy. So I don't think it's a good investment. You're just paying somebody to kind of chill, which I don't like doing that. And so I like to focus there. The only caveat being, if you're the type of person that loves doing the work, but you hate another part of your business, 10 out of 10 times hire.
Maybe they hate sales.
Yeah. Hire the thing you hate.
Yeah.
Hire the thing you hate. It's hard to put a value on enjoying what you do at work every day.
Yeah. And if you're doing something that you don't like, then it's not going to be sustainable. And we all have to do things we don't like.
Yeah.
But that's okay if we accept that it's temporary. If we are signing up for a long-term position and we hate doing that thing, we are going to sabotage ourselves to, end up in a position where we're not doing that thing anymore. And that's usually going to be at the detriment of the business, which obviously affects you as the business owner as well. And so we want to avoid self-sabotage. But we all, like I said, we all have to do things we don't want to do, especially at the beginning. And I really agree with what you're saying, Wilson. Hire first what you hate doing the most. Starting the business off on your own, I think can be, if it's possible. It's not possible for all businesses, but if you can do everything yourself at the beginning and start off small or even start off slow as well, there's so many benefits to that, because you're going to get clarity around the different challenges within your business. And so you're going to hire people more effectively because you know exactly what you're looking to have solved. And so you can vet people to have those skills that you need. Yes. And it also allows you to discover what you like and don't like. You might think you hate sales, but if you were given a sales process to follow and you start getting results, you might find yourself enjoying sales because it becomes a game that pays you money.
Yeah, what they really mean is I hate no's.
Yeah, exactly. And so you want to try a little bit of everything in the business to kind of acclimate yourself. You're probably not going to have a choice at the beginning unless you have a bunch of money or you have a team to start with. So starting off on your own isn't necessarily a bad thing, but once you have a lay of the land with your business and you know what areas that you dislike the most, like Wilson said, those are going to be things you want to look at delegating. And for a lot of people who are getting into home services, most people, not all, but most people have experience with the labor side of the business. And so they start off doing that with the business, but they have to learn the sales process, and they might hate the sales or they might neglect things within the sales process. And so they might think they need to hire a salesperson first. And though that may be true for some people, I would say for the general public, that may not be the first thing you want to hire. If you hate sales, you at least need to get sufficient at sales. Yes. I hate running, but sometimes depending on my goal, I have to make myself run, whether it's for whatever reason, health or just burning calories for a specific goal. We might have to do things we don't want to do sometimes, but getting at least sufficient in sales, even if you dislike the process, is going to be hugely beneficial because it allows you to generate your own revenue. And at the very beginning, that's going to be really important because you don't have a lot of profit. You're only able to do so much on the production side because you're by yourself. And so maximizing your sales opportunity is bringing in sometimes more cash flow than fulfilling on the service you provide, because you can close more deals than you can serve customers in the same amount of time. And
it's
so
also harder to fix, right?
What's that?
So it's harder to fix. If I hire a tech that comes out and goes out and does a bad job, I can come behind that tech and I can fix them, right?
Yeah.
The job is 99,000 out of 10,000 times or 100,000 times it's salvageable. I mean, you'd have to really screw up for the job not to be salvageable. But with sales, it doesning work that way. If I outsource sales to somebody that doesn't know what they're doing and they screw that up, I can't just make new sales appear out of thin air. And so it's harder. The thing of sales is the one I'm least likely to tell people to go on first for a couple of reasons. One being it is hardest to fix. And two, for most organizations, you have to have a certain level of volume and capacity to keep a full-time salesperson busy anyways.
Right.
That said, when people start focusing on solutions instead of problems, if you really hated sales that much, you could form a referral network and give your referral partners the ability to sell your services directly and set the price point for them and solve that problem. So it's not like there's not a creative solution if that's the thing you're trying to solve your way out of.
Yeah, I do agree, like what you were saying with hiring labor first. You want to get sufficient with everything in your business, but to grow your business, you're going to need to be able to handle more capacity. And you also are going to need more time to devote to sales. And so starting off with like a helper on the technical side isn't a bad idea as your first hire, because you can kind of teach them the process, which you should have a process for the service that you're fulfilling. And to be with them one-on-one is going to be the best way to present the way you want things done. Just telling them is a recipe for telling them over and over and over. Yes. And so having a process that's documented that they can actually study. So you can go through it once or twice, and then the rest of the time they're studying and practicing, and you're there for feedback. And so starting off with a helper is a huge benefit, because you can start that process of getting a technician that can do the work for you. That alleviates, at least at the beginning, some of your time, so that you can then do more sales and fill up the pipeline, and then have enough work to keep both of you busy. Now you can do jobs and do sales part-time. Your new hire, after they're trained, they can do jobs. And then, you get another helper, and you have your first hire train the next one. And now you can go back to doing sales, and now you're doing sales full-time, and you have 2 full-time techs, and just kind of rinse, wash, and repeat. You bring on helpers, train them, and then you do more sales to keep them all busy. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. There's one thing you mentioned actually that I think we probably should have said first, because if you want to scale your business, the easiest way typically to do that is hiring. But in all reality, you should never start hiring before you've actually mapped out the standard operating procedures for the different parts of your business. And
train them.
Well, yeah, so you can train them. I mean, most people in their lives have had a really crappy boss. And a lot of times the reason you have a crappy boss is that crappy boss does not give you clear expectations of what you're expected to do and how you're expected to do it. And so you're kind of floundering around. You're annoyed because you don't have any idea what's going on. They're annoyed because you're not achieving whatever, abstract goal they had in mind when they gave you such crappy directions. And everybody's pissed off because nobody's getting anywhere. And it creates this really weird thing where it's like, Two sides of the same coin. If you hire somebody, you don't give them clear expectations, and let's just say they're a really likable person, like it's somebody you get along with, that means you keep a useless bump on the log for like 6 months because you're not really sure why you should fire them. And I mean, hey, they're pretty cool. Or you have somebody that you hire that's an absolute rock star and solves a lot of problems, but they don't have clear expectations, and you don't have a clear way of tracking what they're doing, but they're kind of annoying. And so you fire somebody that is a great addition to your business because you were looking for a reason, because you didn't have clear expectations to judge how good they were or were not in their process. So yeah, before you start hiring, you should label out the SOPs. The other thing is creating SOPs a lot of times reminds people what they like and what they don't. Because as you're creating the SOPs, you might just be like, oh, God, I hate that part. I hate that part.
The SOP is standard operating procedure. So
standard operating
it's just a documented way of doing the things in a way that you want done.
Yeah, and they're so easy.
Step guide.
They're so easy to create. You just have to take the time. It's like, great example, SOP for getting dressed in the morning, right? It's like step 1, put on your pants. Step 2, put on your shirt. Step 3, left sock. Step 4, right sock. And it's so ingrained in you as the owner, you probably don't have to think about a lot of these things to do it. So if you're ever not sure, you can literally have your friend just be like, hey, can you ask me how to do all the different things in my business and sit down with me for an hour? If somebody's like, hey, how do you set up a call for a new appointment? You're like, oh, well, first you do this, then you do this. And as you explain it to them, you can literally create those SOPs in real time. Or if you're super struggling with it, you can go on Fiverr and you can pay somebody that knows how SOPs are meant to be built out to literally extract them from your brain. There's no good reason not to do it other than you like throwing away money.
On that, where, you can ask a friend or family member, when we talked about kind of an accountability partner, they can walk you through the creation of your standard operating procedure by just asking you, how do you do this? How do you do that? And so really defining the roles that are within your business are hugely important, so that you know what you're hiring for and what they need to do. If you are like, oh, well, I need someone to install Windows. Well, if you don't have a standard operating procedure or a standardized way of installing the Windows, then you have no idea how the other person is going to be doing it. Correct. And if you want them to do certain things that help distinguish you in the marketplace, whether it's on the fulfillment side or the customer service side, or how you want them to complete the job or wrap the job up or collect the invoice, there might be little things that you want done that if you don't have a way for them to learn, they're not going to learn it. And you telling them over and over is not going to be a way to teach them. Right. So you just need to write down whatever you do in your business. If you do oil changes or you install gutters or flooring, break that process down into a step-by-step readable document. You can use Google Docs. I would highly recommend using just Google Docs. It's free, and you can share it with people. But you could just type up step 1, do this, step 2, do that. And that gives your new hire a instruction to follow. And as time goes on, and it doesn't take a lot of time, but you'll be able to improve that process. Oh, I forgot to tell them I want them to do this, or oh, I forgot to add this to the process. And so that process will evolve.
Or you'll see things screw up and you'll know it was your fault because you didn't have the appropriate thing in the SOPs, which is fine. But then you're not assigning blame to the wrong person for the wrong reason, which I think is incredibly important. You know, there's you got a serious glare there. There's no,
I know.
What's that song? Blinded by the light. There's no real excuse not to do that. It is not something that takes a lot of time, and it really does create an air of professionalism in your business. The other thing is, especially if you are in a specialty business, like a really niche down business, which we're huge fans of. You're no longer, if you have great SOPs, you're no longer reliant on finding experts in order to train talented people. Because if you don't have good standard operating procedures, you don't have a good way of training these individuals, then what you're banking on is that the person you're hiring has enough experience to be able to come in and do great. And that's going to cause, well, problem number one it's going to cause is they're going to want a lot more money because they feel like you're going to need them. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't pay people well, but I don't feel like I should pay people extra. The second thing,
business relying on the process, not the person.
Yes. The second thing is it's going to probably create your own set of problems because people that have their own specific way of doing things are very likely going to continue to want to do their own specific way of doing things. And so you guys are going to find yourself arguing about what's the quote unquote right way to do this thing that you were supposed to be doing. And that gets super annoying as well. So you should do this. If you haven't created SOPs yet, you should totally pause this and go do it.
And that's going to help you hire people exponentially better. And this was a pivotal moment in my business career, was realizing or asking myself, am I trying to build a business that relies on A players, which requires me to have to find the cream of the crop and do whatever I can to keep them? Or can I build a business that's just as successful relying on less than A players? Let's call them B players. And it's not, I'm not for the team members that are watching this, I'm not saying that
you have an awesome
player. Yeah, I mean, I have A players for sure, but the success of my business doesn't have to rely on A players. I realized as I was having to learn the pitfalls of hiring and training people the wrong way, I realized there was a better way to do that. And so defining the roles, creating step-by-step process for everything, so I didn't have to find the smartest people, or I didn't have to find people who already were super good. I was finding people who wanted an opportunity and who want to learn.
Like a really successful coach with a really successful team can turn B players into A players, right? But A players don't want to work on shitty teams. Like you don't see Alex Rodriguez going to play in AAA ball, right? He doesn't want to play on those teams. The reality is A players aren't going to stick around if they come into your shop and see that you're running it like if you're running it like an amateur, they're not going to want to stick around. They're like, I can go work somewhere else where I'm not having to deal with all of this crap because you can't get it together. And so you will lose those A players, or they're going to recognize how much you need them and they're going to stick around because you have to pay them a lot more than they would get elsewhere. But whereas that might be good for them, that's really bad for you, and it's going to be very hard for you to scale the business that way.
Right. So you want to keep a balance. We're going to have people. Everyone has people in their business that are hugely instrumental, but there are circumstances that we can't control. So if you're building your business in a way that depends on the people in the business for the overarching success. Now, every business is going to be impacted in the short term. As we evolve the business and get good people, when good people leave, we're going to feel it. But because we have a system, because we have a process for every part of the business, we can train someone to fill that role a lot sooner than if we didn't have the process and we're freaking out. Oh, Susan left. Susan was the only way we were getting jobs. How do we get jobs now? Well, if you have a sales process, if you have a marketing process, and you have a way to even train new salespeople, Susan leaving is going to suck because now you got to train someone new.
Mm-hmm.
At least you're just following the process. You're not having to figure anything out.
Yeah, there's a difference between annoying and detrimental. Yeah. All right. So first step, SOPs. Second step, figure out through that process what things you like, what things you don't, and hire based on that. If you're not super just obsessively hatred of one particular thing, we recommend starting with labor and then moving to administrative and then eventually moving to sales. Next step.
Depending on the business, I mean, you can do your own sales for quite a while.
Yeah.
It just depends on your goals and where you're trying to get in business. If you want the business to be fully self-sufficient without you, yeah, you're going to need a sales process.
Yeah. I think one thing that's tough within that process and a part that can hold people back, and I've seen this in several of my businesses, is, you have to create solutions that are relevant to your team where they're at, right? So the first CRM we ever had in any of my businesses was a super basic, really simple, like, do they like us? Yes or no. Did you send them the quote? Yes or no. It was really, really basic. As your business scales and gets a little bit more developed, you're going to want to invest in those things. But you make time for doing those things in between the hires, because what people forget is once you get a really good person in place, like if you have a really good labor, it's helping you as a tech, that might save you, in our business, 15 hours a week, right? For the first couple of weeks once you're there. Once that person's full on, you're still going to want to do one job with them, but within 30 days, you're going to hire your next tech, and now they're training. Once you have two guys, you have essentially set up a business where it can make enough money that you can work and those two guys can work and you can live off that. You're not rich, but you're surviving. You're surviving well. You could be making, $8,000-$10,000
a business.
It does.
I have a buddy with a window company. They're making well over 7 figures with one technician in revenue, but they're netting, several $100,000 a year just with one team member. And, one technician, he does the sales, he does the project management, he has one installer.
Wow.
And just the way the profits work out and the price of these projects,
Windows ain't cheap.
$20,000.
Yeah.
And they're pretty quick to install, so that, you're spending most of the time waiting on the windows to be delivered, but install only takes, a day, depending on how many windows. But so depending on your business, you may not need a huge team to be super successful, and you can have the business giving you a great work-life balance and a great income. You might be happy, or you might want to own several businesses and you need the business to be self-sufficient. So you're going to have to grow the team to handle the roles that you were doing yourself.
Yes. But as you're bringing those people on, conscientiously thinking about the technological pieces that can improve it, and also not being afraid to ask. Like, you can talk. I mean, there's 1,000 different consulting firms. There's 1,000 different options out there for people that have experience and will teach you what to do, right? Like, most people think it's successful people and they go, oh man, he must be so smart. It's like, no, they're smart enough to be dumb enough to listen. Like, successful people aren't solving all their own problems. That is a huge waste of time. If every person had to reinvent the wheel in order to hop on a bicycle, nobody would be on a bicycle.
Right.
All right. It's the truth. You got to go find other solutions. Like, figure out who's done it, ask them what they did. If they won't tell you for free, pay them. You're going to make the money back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope that gives some clarity into how to think about growing your team. You certainly want to know the roles within your business first, so that you can hire and train people. But then when you're deciding on who to hire first, me and Wilson both agree that you should look at the service fulfillment and start that process of training someone first, and then go into admin supports to support you doing more sales. And then as your team continues to grow and you need to bring in more jobs to keep everyone busy, then you can maybe look at recruiting some sales support, depending on your own capacity. So hopefully that helps, guys. Definitely want to hear back from those who are in that position. Would love to hear where you're currently at. If you need some support with thinking through things, feel free to send us an email at support@cabinetstartup.com. Whether you're in a cabinet business or not, a lot of the systems and challenges in the business that works, if you're in a home service business, we have a lot of the same challenges. And so we'd love to help you with that. Feel free to comment any feedback. Would love to hear from you guys. Other than that, we'll talk to you guys same time, same place next week.
Bye, everybody.
Have a great one.